Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're having a great day so far, wherever this finds you, whatever time zone you're in. Next up, we have Grizzly Discoveries, Inc., trades on the OTCQB under the symbol GZDIF, and on the TSXV under the symbol GZD, and is a diversified Canadian mineral exploration company with its primary listing on the TSX Venture Exchange, focused on developing its approximately 66,000 hectares or 160,000 acres of precious and base metals properties in southeastern British Columbia. Please welcome its technical consultant and advisor, Mike Dufresne. Welcome, Mike. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Wonderful to give this presentation on my birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the floor is yours, Mike.
Great. So my name's Mike Dufresne. I'm president of Apex Geoscience. I'm the QP and helped, was the QP for Grizzly Discoveries when they got listed in 2004, 2005. And our focus that I'm going to be talking about today is base or battery metals and precious metals in British Columbia and right up against the U.S. border. So I would welcome everybody, whether you're in Eastern and Western time zones. Let's get going. The obligatory forward-looking statements. We are an exploration company, and we hope to find resources, but nothing's guaranteed. It is the mineral exploration business. Precious metal properties, two of them in Southeast BC, right up against the US-Canada border in British Columbia. Covers about, the two projects cover 160,000 acres. We have a focus last year and this year on the Robocop, which is the very southeast point of British Columbia, and the Greenwood Project and several occurrences within the Greenwood Project, including Motherlode, Dayton, Keck-28, and another one called Sappho. We have active exploration programs that have been ongoing since fall 2020. We did drilling in fall 2020. Summer 2021 and spring 2021, we did some airborne surveys and expended about $1 million. The Greenwood area in particular is a prolific and historic mining district. All these projects are fully road accessible near or beside towns. We have excellent First Nations as supportive and active partners. I'll go on to the board of the company. We have a tried and true board of professionals and businessmen. In particular, Brian Testo has been with the company since its inception, and Jim Gregg, Joe Price have provided semi-independent technical advice and help guide the company through the process of exploration. I'm the QP qualified person for Grizzly and the primary consultant. Company was incorporated in 2004, 2005. Is actually seen a bit of an increase in share prices, about 132 million shares outstanding, and about $2 million in treasury. Management and friends and associates own a large portion of the company. And these numbers are as of the end of April. There's been a fair bit of trading as we get towards drilling here this 2022. And I want to let you know that one thing about Grizzly is it's 132 million shares out, but it's never had a rollback. And so that's about 14, 15 years of raising capital and putting money into the ground on exploration projects across Alberta and Canada. Right now, one of our main focuses is the Robocop property, which is basically kitty corner to Highway 93. Highway 93, you can drive all the way down to Nevada on that highway. Goes through Whitefish, Kalispell. It's the Fort Steele Mining District. This is the U.S. border here, and these are some of the historic occurrences that were found in the early to late 1960s. It can be pretty much worked all year round, at least 270 days a year. It's about 10,000 acres of mineral claims, which we've recently expanded based on our airborne survey. It has a paved highway 5 kilometers away. It even has a Phillips Creek hydro plant, which is a private hydro plant that's on Phillips Creek here, and so it has access to power. The East Kootenays, however, do have a 100-year history of mining. This is just some of the historic data. We flew an airborne survey in early 2021. Some of the trench samples from the 80s and 90s uncovered up to 2.67% copper with almost 0.5% cobalt, and in one of the trenches, 1.93% copper over 6 meters. There's been a little bit of historical drilling, but it's only 15 holes, and there has been some what I classify as good grades over some thin distances. 1% copper, almost 1.15% cobalt over 2 meters. The 2021 work program was an airborne survey looking for conductivity anomalies, which are often associated with sulfides, and soil sampling program. And it only really hadn't had any sampling done on this project since the late 80s, early 1990s. We have a 1,000 to 2,000 meter core drilling program planned, and that will happen this year. You can see here the original land position in red. We staked a bunch of new mineral claims in white here, so we've expanded our land position. Historical drilling, as I mentioned, 1% copper, 0.15% cobalt over 2 meters. We've done some geological modeling. There's only 15 holes. We do see some fault offsets, which complicate the geology and interpretation, and just needs a lot more drilling. There's been about 3 areas over about 1.1 kilometers of strike length, which is a little over 3/4 of a mile. And that was all conducted between 1990 and 2008 in a couple of different programs. And they all intersected copper, cobalt, silver mineralization. Some of the grades, you can download the presentation and see some of these grades. But certainly what I would classify as economic type grade profiles with copper and cobalt over reasonable thicknesses and right at surface. The actual target is what we call sediment hosted cobalt, copper, silver mineralization, and it's very similar in style, age, and host rocks to a project that's currently being built, which is Dufresne Mining's Idaho Cobalt Project down near Salmon, Idaho, which we also have some involvement with. Just to step back and give you a bit of a regional context here, and just for scale, this represents about 400 or 500 kilometers. This is what we call the Purcell or belt group to the Americans. And you can see here, this is the location in blue. Here is location of the Idaho Cobalt Project, and the Robocop projects on the north side of the basin. The Idaho Cobalt projects on the south side of the basin, kind of near the edges and often associated with mafic volcanic rocks, which are probably the source of copper. You can see here in the second slide, there are a number of mines being built or in operation. Spar Lake Rock Creek, which is near in Montana, and Black Butte is currently undergoing construction permits. And these are all copper, cobalt, silver. Some cases they have a bit of gold associated with them, but all in these belt Purcell rocks. So we perceive these rocks as highly prospective. This is what we call a stratigraphic section. The rocks down here, Aldridge, which is the famous Sullivan lead zinc deposit. This is about 1.8 billion years old. The rocks we're dealing with is the Shepherd. It's about 1.4 billion years old. And you can see these in red are these stars are the copper occurrences or copper projects. And they span 400 million years of age here, with Black Butte in the older rocks, Troy and Rock Creek in the sort of middle Purcell group rocks, and Dufresne and our project in the in sort of the upper Purcell group at about 1.4 billion year old rocks. We have mafic volcanics, which are likely in the copper silver source. We have a sandstone that sits over top of it. Fluids have pulled copper out of this rock and moved it into this rock, and that's the sort of basic premise in exploring for this type of deposit. In early 2021, we flew an airborne survey. This is an example. This is actually the airborne survey. These purple colored blobs here are essentially conductivity anomalies, which are often associated with sulfides. Kind of in the background is the old soil sampling that had been done. This is the discovery area. We expanded this, and now we're at over 6 kilometers of copper and cobalt soil anomalies. This is kind of what the rock looked like. Malachite and chalcopyrite are the main copper-bearing minerals, and cobalt is associated with that. We made a couple of new discoveries of float. These are pretty steep ridges, And these rocks are coming out of those ridges. They're all talus covered. Exposure is not great, even though we're in the mountains. This is a bit of a blow up. You can see here the new soil sampling. Here is the 2 areas of float that we discovered. Again, this is about 6 kilometers, 6.5 kilometers from the northwest end to the southeast end. This is the U.S. border right down at the bottom. And these purple blobs will be our drill targets. They're conductivity anomalies that we're currently about to engage in a ground geophysical survey to more better define these anomalies. And then we'll use this road, we'll come up on top into this logging cut, and we'll drill some holes here. There's only been about 15 holes, and those 15 holes are all drilled around this discovery area. They sort of span this area here with this copper cobalt anomaly. You can see here, this is the actual cobalt numbers now in blue. Copper was in orange. You can see we've got some nice cobalt anomalies. They're not as widespread as the copper. So that's why we want to focus on some of these areas where we know we're getting cobalt and we got these conductivity anomalies. We applied for a 20-hole program that's been submitted to the BC government, and we hope to be drilling sometime August, September. We'll be conducting this ground geophysical survey, what we call time domain electromagnetic survey, in hopefully in June. And that sort of wraps up the Robocop. I'm just going to say a few words about the potential for battery metals and precious metals in the Greenwood District. The Greenwood District is about 70 kilometers right along the U.S. border here. It's actually the Greenwood Republic District. And Osoyoos, this black triangle here, Grand Forks here, and that's about, as the crow flies, about 70 to 80 kilometers between them. We have a large land package here with a number of old historic mines and mineral occurrences. Gold was discovered here in the 1860s, 1870s, and exploration and mining have continued for well over 100 years in this district. Between the Republic Graben on the U.S. side and the Greenwood area, there's been over 7 million ounces of gold have been mined out a year, and 1 billion pounds of copper and significant silver. This is our land position. You can see we're quite a big landholder. Kinross operated its Buckhorn mine just south of the border here, about 7 kilometers away from our lands. We have a number of targets on our lands. We've conducted a bunch of exploration over the years. And what we're targeting is copper, gold, silver skarns, and alkalic porphyry. Some of these alkalic porphyries, like the Sappho, have platinum group elements, including platinum and palladium. We've intersected in prior drilling at Sappho and Dayton. We've intersected what I would consider economic grades over decent widths, up to 60, 70 meters in thickness. This is the historic Phoenix mine that operated for over 20 to 30 years in the 60s and 70s. That Phoenix pit produced 1 million ounces of gold, 6 million ounces of silver, and over 520 million pounds of copper. So pretty significant producer, and there's a lot of exploration potential to find more in this district. We've done a lot of work here. We've spent well over $7 or $8 million historically in this district, 2,500 samples, 10,000 soils, 2,000 line kilometers of geophysics, and more than 12,000 meters and about 70 holes of core drilling widespread across this district. One of the targets we're going to be focused on is Motherlode Pit. This is an old pit that was in production, produced almost 200,000 ounces of gold and 77 million pounds of copper. First staked into production in 1891 and 1901. They actually had a smelter constructed, which closed due to decreasing ore grades in the early 1900s. We've actually uncovered a new target to the north of the pit. This is the north edge of the pit here, so about 1 kilometer north of the pit. Again, purple is these conductivity anomalies. We drilled a couple of holes in 2011 that intersected significant gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc. It's magnetite chalcopyrite skarn is our target here. The Motherlode pit itself, in the days that we did that original drilling, we did not own it, but the patented claims that held those old pits are now have been under forfeiture, and eventually they will come into our claim holding. Some of the examples of the mineralization you can see here at the Motherlode target. We've got 1.5 grams over 20 meters almost, quite a bit, 6 grams over 4.5 meters, 6 grams over 1.5 meters. Some of the other targets to note: Dayton Prospect, 0.43 grams per ton gold, 0.15% copper, which equates to a copper equivalent of about 4.4% copper over 50 meters. Also, the Sappho, almost 0.4% copper equivalent over about 60 meters, with significant platinum and palladium. And those are going to be the focus of our 2022 exploration. The Dayton Project is located just west of the town of Rock Creek. Osoyo sits here, Rock Creek sits here, just north of Highway 3. This line in here is the power line and a gas line that goes right through the middle of the property. So again, great infrastructure. Everything's drive to. This was originally found in the 70s and 80s with a copper gold geochemical anomaly. We did a fair bit of drilling in 2011 and 2012 into the main geophysical target that we identified. I got some ordinary grades of copper and gold, but we had one hole in the secondary target that actually has got us our 0.4% copper equivalent over 60 meters. And we're going to follow this up with some new drilling. You can see here, this shows again, purple is conductivity, some of the geophysical targets, a bit of a 3D model here, and here's some of our grades: a 0.438 gold and 0.15% copper over about 51 meters in this hole right here. And so that's just to summarize. Grizzly's embarking on several drill programs this year at Robocop and Greenwood. We're chasing copper gold geochemical anomalies at Robocop along with conductivity anomalies, planning drilling about 10 holes this year, spending about $500,000 in 2,000 meters. Greenwood, we already have permits in place for drilling at the Mother Lode. And the Dayton Prospect, we're going to also look at the Sappho project, and we're planning 2,000 to 3,000 meters of drilling there and an additional $500,000 of expenditures. And that's the presentation for today. I'll open up the floor for questions.
Are you ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
Sorry, my computer just restarted. Okay, so we do have some questions. First of all, congratulations from Cebu Latour. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He says, "Go Grizzly, go." Very excited for this. Then we have Tracy Bishop says, "The company is trading at about 1x assets and almost no debt, according to the recent filings. When do you anticipate cash flow, and at what multiple do you think the stock will trade at?"
Good question. I mean, we're an early stage exploration company, and we work at the early end of the exploration and production cycle. It's high risk and high reward. Production is certainly several years away at the best. To be quite frank, we're into making discoveries and then putting resources together, and then you go through the economic studies, and that tends to be a long, drawn-out process. We're quite honestly, we're at the fun stage, which is trying to find the mother lode, so to speak. No pun intended.
Well, that sounds right. All right. Brian Gritz Tesso says, "Happy birthday from the gang." So happy birthday to you. And Rebecca McDonald says, "What majors are producing near you, and do you know how much?"
Oh, excellent question. So Kinross was in production and producing about 200,000 ounces of gold a year, about 7 kilometers south of our property. Golden Dawn has a mill that they're trying to put their Greenwood gold copper project back into production. Major production is in about 60, 70 kilometers away in the Princeton area. There's a number of outstanding copper mines. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you what the copper production out of Princeton is. And out of Kamloops, there are also a number of active copper gold mines that are in production and producing. And this is a well explored, and very much mining conscious part of the world down here in the Kettle River Valley. And so, they know what mining's about, much like the Republic Robin area.
Ruby Tran asks, what's your current burn and how much more will you have to spend to get to cash flow positive?
Excellent question. So current burn, I think traditionally for Grizzly has been about $250,000 a year to maintain listings, do audits, certainly pay CFO and a couple others in the organization. Primarily, Grizzly's money goes into the ground and primarily goes into drilling. If you're not drilling, you're not going to make discoveries. In terms of trying to understand the amount of cash to get to production, that could be a few millions of dollars to tens of millions of dollars. You see in these bigger projects, it depends on the size of the project. A project like the Greenwood Gold project that Golden Dawn currently owns, that's a 5 or 10 million exercise to get into production. With some of these big copper projects, can take a lot more capital than that.
Brian Marshall asks, why should we invest in yours? There's a lot of junior exploration companies out there. So what's the different aspect that makes your company more attractive than the others?
I would say 2 reasons. We're playing in 2 world-class districts in terms of discovery potential and history for mining. And the second point to that is a proven track team. A proven track record for the team that's involved include Jim Craig, Joe Price, and myself. We've been involved in a number of discoveries and successful projects that have gone on to mining. And I am involved in mining in a number of places in the world. And so it's the people and the projects, quite frankly.
And Darren Ross asks, what's your time frame from drilling in September, your survey in June to production?
Yeah, we're planning ground geophysical surveys. We have crew on the ground in Greenwood right now. We're planning ground geophysical surveys over the next month at both Greenwood and at the Robocop. And we'll need a month to process that data, and we want to commence drilling in late August and drill through the fall, which is a wonderful time to be working. We don't want to do too much drilling in fire season. The Kettle River area has, it's pretty dry and hot in the summer. So late August is a good time to start drilling for us, and we can generally drill right up to Christmas. So that's the plan, to drill somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 meters. Start sometime in late August.
Wonderful. Shelley Henry asks, when are you finally in production, and how much can you produce, and for how long, and then what's next?
I think it's a little bit cart before the horse. We have to make the discoveries and assess our resources first before we can make that determination. As I mentioned before, are we going to be a smaller underground operation, much like the Golden Dawn or Idaho Cobalt project, or are we going to be a big open pit? Timelines on undergrounds are a lot shorter. And smaller projects are a lot shorter than some of these big open pit copper projects. So, it's really dependent upon what we discover. And honestly, these types of projects and to get to production are, they're 5 and 10 year timelines. These are not done overnight.
Benny Parker says, it looks like you have many verticals to revenue. What's the next milestone we should look for? Making a discovery in drilling, and that can really that's what moves a lot of these junior mining companies in a favorable environment for copper and cobalt and gold. Making discoveries, getting good drill intersections, and not just putting one hole together, but putting a series of holes together. That eventually the next milestone for us will be a mineral resource, and that is what we're trying to get to. Margaret Chavez asks, can you discuss your team and their experience? And you did do that in your presentation, but she'd like to, she might have missed that part. So if you can discuss them one more time.
Yeah, I didn't give any details. Personally, myself, I've explored all over Western North America and into Australia, in one of our offices in Australia. I've been part of the discovery team for at least 3 major discoveries, one of which is gone into production. Perseverance in Western Australia has been mined out, quite honestly, an underground mine. And I was part of the discovery team for George Lake Goose Lake, which is currently contemplating production, and it's about a 7-8 million ounce gold project in Nunavut. Jim Gregg was part of the Caden team and sold off, I believe, a $500 million Mexican discovery to Agnico, and was involved in another project that's currently in production in Africa. And Joe Price works for a number of the junior mining companies in the discovery group, who have a long history of discoveries and production in some of their companies. So I think technically the team is very strong, and that's, you've hit on the nose what some of the most important parts of some of these junior companies are, and it's the people. Absolutely.
Miranda King asks, are you looking for more territories, or are you more focused on burn and going into production?
Focused on making new discoveries and getting to resource stage. We will also always take a look at any new projects that make sense, but that's not our focus at this point. We have a very good land holding, and our focus is to explore properly and develop those lands.
Diana Graves asks if you're looking for any JVs with any majors, or are you focused on doing it all yourself?
We had a JV with Kinross back a number of years ago for some portions of our Greenwood project. We're always open to additional joint ventures. That one has been returned to us. And so I think you're in control of your own destiny when you're doing it yourself, and that is our preferred route.
I understand that. Sam Scherstobitov asks, what is your timing to get a preliminary 43-101?
I think we're going to need a couple seasons of drilling this year and maybe next year. And we hope to be putting some resources together, I would say, sometime late next year.
And last question from Christopher Pearson. Is your cost to drill and prepare the studies increasing during this time of inflated costs, or do you anticipate them to remain constant or decrease?
Look, the mining sector is very cyclical. I've been in the business 35 years. Traditionally, we've used an all-up cost of $250 a meter, and that's everything: assays, drilling, cat work, reclamation, geologists, the whole 9 yards. It's interesting, that hasn't changed much the last 15 years that we've been working in Greenwood. I suspect some of the drilling costs will be up a little bit this year, but it kind of $5 or $10 or $20 a meter. I'm not expecting huge increases.
I think we have time for one more quick question from Spencer Sewell. What's your likelihood to utilize debt in the future?
Boy, that's a good question. I think it's not in our immediate future. If we are able to find something, put a mineral resource together, and put an economic study such as a PEA or a pre-feasibility together, sure, debt is always something to look at, but not something that you do in the early exploration stages.
Well, thank you so much for this great presentation, Mike. And please join us again in the future with some updates. And again, happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Everyone stay with us. We're going to be right back with our next presenter.